About a month and a half ago, I decided that I wanted to list out my garage for rent. Now, in the past, I've rented out rooms in my house. I have a couple tenants that live in here and they sign up for month-to-month rentals. But I had never rented out storage space before, so I was really unfamiliar with this process. My first idea was to go ahead and post this on Craigslist, because that's kind of like the first place I go for everything. And I actually saw a couple of other people doing this, so I thought, why not? I've actually found roommates on Craigslist before, and for the most part, they turned out to be pretty cool. Minus like one or two kind of strange roommates. I also thought about just putting a giant sign on my garage saying for rent. But after thinking through all of these different methods, I realized I wanted to do this the right way. After all, the last thing that I wanted was to rent this garage out to some random person on Craigslist, only to find out like a month or two later that that RV they were parking in my garage was actually a meth lab. And I'd heard about this other service before. It's kind of like a new app, and they called themselves the Airbnb of storage. The app's called Neighbor, and it's really pretty simple. You just put your garage up on their app or their website, list it up, put a rental price, and people will find you and ask if they can rent it out. Now there's different types of insurance involved to keep you safe and to keep the renters safe. I definitely had my skepticism, and a lot of times I like to just do things myself so that I don't have to give people another cut and give the platform a cut. But I was a little bit sketched out about Craigslist, and after my ad sat there for a few weeks and didn't get a whole lot of bites, I decided to go ahead and just give Neighbor a try. But the first thing that I needed to do was actually clean out my garage. I hadn't really been using the garage space. I didn't have a whole lot of things to store in there, but it kind of just became a pile of clutter over the years. All of the things that I needed to get rid of. I was beginning to feel like a little bit of a hoarder, and it was time for an intervention. Jonathan, I know we've been friends for a really long time, and you've kind of changed recently. I'm getting a little bit worried about you. What are you talking about, man? Everything's great. Yeah, you know, Jonathan, everything seems good on the surface, but I feel like there's a lot of baggage starting to pile up. Nonsense. Take one of these Philips soft white light bulbs. I know you need one for your kitchen. Yeah, I do actually need one of those. But that's not the point. Why do you have this anyways? Well, you never know when you're gonna need something like that. Look, Jonathan, I'm just gonna say it. I think you're a hoarder. It's true, I had become a hoarder and it was time to clean up my act. So I went ahead and got that garage space cleaned up so that I could actually get it listed on Neighbor. Let's go take a look at what it looks like now. So it's really nothing amazing, but what it is a lot of space, and that's what people need. They need a place to store their stuff, and they don't want to pay outrageous prices from U-Haul storage and other places like that. So the storage space rental industry is actually quite interesting. Oftentimes these companies are backed by real estate investment trusts. They will either buy a storage space or develop their own space. And quite a bit of market research is done beforehand to make sure that these companies can be cash flow positive on these storage space rentals. The returns are quite good. Investors can expect the annual cash flow to average between 8 and 10% on these investments. And better yet, the value of this real estate is known to appreciate over time. So later down the road, if they feel like selling off these investments, they can return a huge profit on those sales. Now, my approach here is obviously very different from these large real estate investment trusts. I didn't buy the house with the intention of renting out the garage as storage space. The opportunity just kind of fell in my lap, and I'm deciding to run with it. So I had to do a little bit of more research on one of my lowest cost competitors in order to find out what a good price would be to set my garage space rental for. And Neighbor.com does a lot to kind of help me with these prices. They recommend a price to start off with and an introductory rate to kind of hook those new customers in. But I wanted to make sure that I had the numbers right. So I went ahead and looked at U-Haul's numbers to make sure that I was undercutting them on cost. And U-Haul also has a very interesting business model. Similar to the storage space rental, they also rent out moving trucks to help people with the full process of moving their stuff. And they actually don't make much money on renting out these moving trucks. But what they do make money is upselling accessories. A lot of people want to rent out a trailer for during that move, and they decide that they're gonna need a trailer hitch in order to attach that trailer to their truck. Lucky for them, U-Haul has plenty of these available to fit just about any truck. So I took a look at U-Haul's prices in the North Seattle zip code. And here's what I found out. For a small storage space, we're talking about a 5 by 10 by 8 foot space, U-Haul's introductory rate is about $125 per month. Now my storage space, on the other hand, is about 10 by 10 by 18 feet long, making it much larger than this small storage space category. And when I listed this space on the Neighbor website, Neighbor recommended that I set the pricing at about $150 a month with an introductory rate of $78 a month, making it about half off on that first month. It felt like a very fair rate that I could definitely raise down the road when I had some nice reviews up there on the Neighbor website. But there was just one small thing. I do still store some of my tools in the garage space, so it's kind of like a shared space. So I didn't actually want to rent out my full storage space. And furthermore, I actually put this listing up before I cleaned out the garage space. It was really quite a lazy move on my behalf. I did not take any pictures. I just used the picture that Neighbor suggested from Google Maps. And to give you guys a little bit of context, I bought my house about 2 years ago and it was in really terrible condition. It was listed as a fixer-upper as best. The entire yard was overgrown and you could barely see the house from the street. Now, if there's one rule that I always follow when I'm trying to list out a space or sell a space, it is the more pictures and the better quality of pictures, the higher price that I can command. And being that I was kind of lazy here, I did not expect to get a huge price on this. What eventually ended up happening was I had quite a few people interested in my listing. These people liked the storage space at the price that I was asking, and initially that was at over $150 a month. But at the last minute, I had a new tenant, a new roommate move in, and he wanted to keep 2 motorcycles and a weight bench in the garage, so I could no longer rent out this garage space. And I ended up having to turn down a lot of these high offers. But a month later, he decided to move out and my garage space was open for business once again. I got a new hit on the space, and before you know it, I was back in talks with a potential renter. So the way that the Neighbor app works is quite simple. I list everything through their website or the app, and I get email updates when someone is interested, but I also get a text message. And I can just respond right through the messages without ever having to go back into the app or back onto the website. And ultimately what I decided to do was negotiate a little bit. I actually came down in price to $90 a month. And I know what you're thinking. We just went through all of the numbers and my garage space is worth way more than that. But this new renter only wanted to rent out a small portion of that space, like half of the garage, so I can still use the other space myself. And one thing that is always true on any of these platforms is that the more listings you've had, the more reviews that you build up, the easier it is to increase those prices over time. So while I'm taking a brief hit on this initial rental, I feel like I'm easily going to be able to raise those prices in the long term and start making more passive income. So let's break down the numbers of what exactly I am making and what the Neighbor platform is taking as a cut for every month that I rent out through their website. Then I'm going to show you guys what my garage looks like now that I have this new renter moved in. I will be paid out monthly via direct deposit, and the space is rented out on a month-to-month basis. So if at any point I decide that I want my garage space back for myself, then I just notify my tenant 30 days in advance that he'll need to vacate the space. After negotiating with my customer, we decided on a new monthly rental price of $92 per month. And my payout on that is $75.19. Some real basic math here shows me that the Neighbor platform is taking about an 18% cut on that rental price. Now, the 18% fee every month may seem like a lot, but I can sleep good at night knowing that I'm protected by Neighbor's insurance policy. They have a $1 million host guarantee that protects me against any personal liability. And that's just something that I couldn't have if I were to post this ad on Craigslist or put up a sign on my garage. This coverage is secondary to any other applicable coverage, like my homeowner's insurance policy. So if something were to happen, I would actually have to go through that policy first. And the host guarantee also does not cover property damage. So it's really important for me to thoroughly vet these renters, find out what they're storing in my garage, and make sure that it's not going to cause any sort of crazy property damage or any huge problems within that realm. My new renter is storing a pop-top camper, and I really don't feel like there's a ton of potential here for this to do damage. It seems like a pretty safe bet, so I'm willing to take on a little bit of risk knowing that for the most part, I am protected by the host guarantee. So let's go ahead and take a look at my garage now that I have my renter's camper stored in it. As you can see, everything is very passive from here forward. I literally just sit on this. If at any point my renter wants to come back to the property, he has to notify me ahead of time. We have that agreement scheduled. It's not 24 hours open for you to come, play around with your rental, do whatever you want in the garage there. It is very much a structured deal. If you've personally rented out your property on neighbor.com, go ahead and let me know down in the comments. I'd love to hear what your experience was. And if you're looking for other forms of passive income, other side hustles, this channel has them all at Gig Nation. And you can also check out my website, gigsharks.com, to find more side hustles, more passive income, more apps in the sharing economy, so that you can start making money while you sleep and hustling more during the day. And if you like this video, go ahead and help me out, hit that like button so that we can spread it to more people.